Welcome back to the Cognition School Podcast. My goal with this podcast is to continue to make people aware of the possibilities by having a more of a smarter kind of approach to the game of hockey, but also beyond just hockey as well. So we certainly work with other athletes that work in other sports like Olympic fencing and pro badminton and now getting into auto racing as well. So really trying to become more of a community of different sports. Now, having said that, hockey is one of my closest areas right now. And so with that, we're bringing on some really special guests. And this week's guest is none other than my good friend, Zachary Rinaldo, who I've known for a number of years now. And he's certainly got some great history. We've worked together for past couple of years, and we've gotten to know each other really well. Zach, so welcome to the Cognition School Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Awesome. Just to maybe do kind of an intro for some people that may not be familiar with who you are, which I think that's rare in the hockey community. But if you want to do a quick intro for us in terms of who you are and some of your background.
Zach Rinaldo, number 36. I was drafted to the Philadelphia Flyers in the 6th round. Played there for 4 years. Bounced around to 6 different teams. Experienced a lot. Had a lot of great coaches. A lot of great teammates. Played almost just shy of 400 games. I think it was 375 or 374.
You're pretty close, I remember.
Right, yep. My role on every team that I was on was high energy. If my team was down a goal or we were tied or even if we were up a goal, I had to look at the score, look at the clock, read the bench, read the coaches, read the players, read the other team, and I had to pick and choose where I thought we needed the energy and how I was going to distribute that energy. So a lot of thinking, a lot of mental preparation, physical preparation went into my game. Took pride, I took joy in it. I played every shift like it was my last. I have no regrets. I left it all out there every single shift, and now I'm not officially retired, but I am transitioning out of playing hockey and I'm going into a coaching role, and I'm really, really enjoying that. And I'm just giving all my experience and everything that I never had as a player and who I never had as a player, I'm giving that to everybody. So that's where I'm at right now, and that's where I've been.
That's very cool. I've known you, even before we first met for a while and followed your career and definitely, you're no short of energy. That's one thing that I remember about you. And it really, I mean, as much as energy gets the fans going, that are watching, I think it was more to your strength and that was, what people really knew you for, as that energy guy. And I think there was a post that I put up with Kevin Bieksa, right, the other day, and he's talking about having different roles on each team. Like if you're a skills guy, be really good at skills. If you're an energy guy, you got to be the best at having that energy. And I think you really honed in on that during your career, which is rare, right? For someone to be so definitive of your role and your area of expertise at such a young age. Like how did you come up with something like that when you knew that you were that energy guy?
That's just me as a person. Like off the ice, obviously I'm not bouncing all over the walls, walking around in public, but when the time is needed, I'm full of energy. I'm full of life. Realistically, I'm a positive person off the ice. I've been through a lot of adversity in my life off the ice that I had to keep positive, and that just kind of rolled over into my playing. But ever since I was 8 years old, I fell in love with playing hard, playing the right way. And I was full of tenacity from a young age. So it just kind of carried me, and everyone told me while I was playing from 8 all the way to 32 years old, don't change. This is what we need. There's not a lot of guys like you. So as a person off the ice, I'm a high energy person. I'm a positive person. So I just carried that on the ice and I enjoyed it. I got a lot of positive feedback from teammates, a lot of positive feedback from GMs and coaches. and I knew I was in the right place doing the right thing, because everybody was telling me, no, I shouldn't say everybody, but majority of the people were telling me, don't change your game, we need you like this, don't change your game. Because a lot of players that enter the league, how I entered the league, fighting and banging and crashing, going to the dirty areas, they try to flip the script and become a player that they weren't brought into the league for. And that was just hammered into me repeatedly, don't change your game, don't change your game. So I just kind of had a tunnel vision with my game. Obviously you have to branch out and do certain things differently, but as a whole, I never changed my game. I never changed who I was as a person off the ice as well. So having a good moral identity as a person helps you become that strong moral identity as a player as well. So it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I think that's important for a lot of the people that are listening to this, because everybody wants to be a Connor McDavid, right? Like kids growing up, they're like, I'm gonna be a Connor McDavid. But after a while, like they realize that, they are their own player, right? And that to understand what your strengths are, I think is so critical at a young age. I think what you're describing are people that you surrounded yourself with that really knew your strengths and supported that. I find that to be very rare in today's game, only because everybody sees the highlights and they want to do what Connor McDavid does, or they want to do what
Matthews does,
a Matthews or a Zegras, or right, and so they try, but it's not their style.
No, and I honestly ask 90% of the young kids that I come in contact with, because I genuinely want to know two things. I want to know who their favorite player is, and I want to know why he's your favorite player. And 9 times out of 10, I'm getting a Matthews or a McDavid. And that's fine. That's great. All the power to you. But then I ask them why he's your favorite player, and they can't give me an answer. 9 times out of 10, they just can't give me an answer. They don't know why he's your favorite player. And I think young kids that have a dream of playing in the NHL, realistically, you need to have your favorite player, and then you need to know why he's your favorite player. And then once you know why he's your favorite player, you have to strive to become that favorite player. For me, my 2 favorite players were Eric Lindros and Pavel Bure. I love Lindros because he can score and he could hit, and I love Pavel Bure because he had the most speed in the whole league. And I took the physicality and the speed away from those 2 players, and I owned that. And I took pride in being one of the fastest guys on every team I was on and hitting the hardest in the whole league. And so you can't just say Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews because they're on the highlight reel. You need to know why. And then once you find out your reason why, you need to own that, you own your craft. And I also tell players, like I was told myself at a young age, if you want to be a goal scorer on your team, you have to score the most goals. Just focus on scoring the goals. And if you want to be a playmaker, then aim for the most assists. And if you want to be that banger and that crash and the high energy, make sure you're going in the dirty areas and you're positive on the bench and you're the highest energy player on your team. You can't really be in between anywhere. But you're right. I mean, everyone sees the highlights. And to add to the cognitive side of things, these players that are making these highlight reel plays, whether they score or they don't score, they're reacting to the situation. They necessarily don't practice these highlight reel moves. They're just reacting, and they're pulling it like they're freestyling it, and they're just reacting and doing what they think is right in that situation. They're not going to practice and practicing those situations. That's just coming up out of instinct. And I think that's where minor hockey and even some maybe junior hockey is getting lost, and they're trying to practice what people are doing at an instinct. And I think that's where we're getting lost in this whole society of developing players.
Yeah, definitely things are changing dramatically, and I agree with you to the point of the, having the favorite players. Like I was a defenseman growing up. My favorites were Al McInnes because I loved his shots, from the point. I love Brian Leach for his playmaking abilities, and then Scott Stevens for his hits. Right. So then I kind of combined some of those 3 components for me, and that was who I then became. I was the smallest, defenseman, back in the day, and hip checks were my thing. Guys flying over my head was my thing. And then when I had the puck on my stick from the point, like I was an Al McInnes, like that was it. So yeah, I think it's that fine mix of different players. And I find it sometimes interesting that, because I train a lot of defensemen here as well, and and I would ask them, hey, who's your favorite player? And they'll tell me Connor McDavid. But you're
Yeah, I hear that a lot too. Yeah.
right? So, I mean, it's interesting what the younger athletes are going through today, but definitely having role models or a group of role models, I think is also important in hockey as well.
It is.
Great. And hey, one other thing that, I mean, obviously, for the people that aren't familiar, we got to really know each other because of the experience you had at Notre Dame, and
Yes,
Rio was
yes.
there, certainly there as well. And I think that's how we actually connected. And because I saw your photo on the wall, I'm like, oh, and then I remember tagging you, and that ever since we've been really close friends.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about your Notre Dame kind of experience and some of the players you got to play with over there.
It was a very unique situation how I ended up there. A very good friend of mine was going there regardless, and he didn't want to go alone. And they are very humble, down-to-earth people, and they invited to pay for my scholarship going out there. So I did a little background check on the school before I went out there, and it was a very high elite. Hockey was your life, and that was my life before going out there. So I got introduced to a school that was just bred for hockey players. I mean, I didn't think. I just said, yep, no problem, let's go. Packed my bags, we left. I had no problem leaving home. That wasn't the issue. When I got there, it was definitely different. I was 14 years old, living in a dorm of four other hockey players. So I was in a grade 9 dorm. But there was so many of us that they picked certain guys to move into the grade 10, 11 dorm. So then I got thrown into an older crowd, which is okay. I made the Major Bantam AAA team. On that team that made the NHL was me and Jordan Eberle. Me and Eberle played together. Although there was maybe 5 guys on our team that were drafted top 3 rounds to WHL, they played good long careers in junior, but I don't think any of them made it past junior. So me and Eberle were the only guys in that age group from that team that pursued an NHL career. I loved it. It was a love-hate relationship, to be honest with you, when I was there. When I was there, I wanted to go home. But when I got home, I was like, oh, you know what? I really miss it. It's like I didn't appreciate what I had while I was there. Then leaving, I really missed the structure. I missed hockey as a class. Looking back now, like, you get to play hockey as a part of your curriculum. That for me is awesome. If I went back and do it all over again, I would definitely appreciate it a lot more than I did. But again, I was young. I was 14, left home. What it also did was it made me grow up very quickly. In the dorms, you have these chores to do, and whether you like it or not, you have to do them because their dorm leaders come into your room and they have a checklist. And if your carpet isn't vacuumed properly, you get docked points, and your windows and your bed and everything like that. It's very military style. So it definitely made me grow up very quickly, and I'm very thankful for that, because if I wasn't in Notre Dame at that point in my life, I don't know where I'd be, to be honest with you. So it really straightened me out on the hockey side of things and the personal side of things. So I'm very thankful for being there, and I had a great experience.
That's awesome. I think when you go to that rink and you see all the names that are on that wall, I was like, it's mind blowing, right? Like, you got Coop in there, you got
Vinny LeCavalier was probably the biggest. I think him and Wendell Clark were the 2 guys that I was like, shit, I'm like, if these guys went here, then I'm in the right place, because those guys were also a big influence for me growing up as a kid as well, playing hockey. So if I knew that I was in the right footsteps and the right trail that they were on, then I'm doing something right.
Yeah, and I think the network that comes out of that is just as important too, because if Rio hadn't gone there, I don't think we'd be here right now. So
probably not.
Those types of camaraderie is definitely important. Let's talk a bit about your NHL career. Any kind of memorable moments for you that you wanted to talk about, that you wanted to share, that people may not be aware of?
Obviously, we know that Eric Lindros was my favorite player. The Philadelphia Flyers was my dream team, and being drafted to them was literally, just being drafted to the Flyers was a dream come true. Playing for the Flyers was just like out-of-body experience. It was very surreal for me. To add on top of that, I was awarded the Gene Hart Memorial Trophy, and that is a trophy, an award voted by the fans in Philadelphia. They vote on what player that they thought played with the most heart, and I was honored to accept that award. And doing what I did in Philadelphia was, I'll never forget it. Obviously, I still Think about it every single day. That was a dream come true. And Boston, playing in Boston was our second favorite team. Cam Neely, Ray Bourque, those kind of guys were my players. So playing for them as well, I mean, it was a very surreal experience. Not one single play sticks out in my mind, but just the life that I was living, playing for my dream teams as a kid growing up. It was very full circle for me, and those are my biggest takeaways off the top of my head that I would share with you and everyone else that's listening. And it kind of puts things in perspective, because your dream, yes, it's very far away, but it's so achievable if you put your mind to it and you dedicate your whole life and you sacrifice things in your life. So I mean, your dream is very achievable if you just believe.
That's true. I mean, you and I have both been kind of, helping younger athletes now, and it's very easy to tell, like within, 30 seconds, whether this kid really has what it takes to get to that next level or not, right? They might be playing AAA hockey, but you know that they're there because they like to hang out with their friends. Yeah, right. So
I know some are there for business, and they can have a good balance with, this is, okay, I'm on the ice, I'm in the dressing room, I'm preparing. And you can also have that fun camaraderie side of you where, yeah, you're having fun, but when it's game time, when it's practice time, you can see the players that want it badly, because they have the ability to flip that switch and go from that kid happy-go-lucky to, okay, business time, let's focus. And I think that is teachable, to be honest with you, because I have witnessed a couple players myself that are kind of too happy-go-lucky, but once I kind of snap them out of it, I've seen the mentality change on their demeanor walking into the rink, and the demeanor of their personality before practice and when they're on the ice. So I think that is teachable, but the guys that naturally just do it, obviously there's a little difference, but I think that's very teachable as well.
Yeah, I think that's important because, I mean, obviously we're talking about hockey now, but at some point, 99.9% of the players that are in hockey today are not making the NHL, and they're all going to have to do something else, right? So whether they work for themselves, or whether they have to work for a company, or whether they have to work for a boss of some kind, what you do outside of work and what you do when you're in work is that flip of a switch, right? Like you really have to sit down and go, okay, now I have to get down to business. And it's the same whether you go into financial services or hospitality or whatever the industry may be. But I think hockey is a good stepping stone to make people aware that when you have to get down to business, you get down to business. And so I think what you're touching on is great, because obviously as part of your transition from your hockey career to now coaching, you still take that discipline with you into the coaching space. So I think it's great.
It kind of throws people off guard, to be honest. Like if you see me, like I'm a personal trainer as well, and I'm coaching at the same time. So guys that I see in the gym, I'm different. I'm a totally different, I'm actually a different person, but my character is a little different. I'm a little easier going, a little more jokingly in the gym. Then you see me on the bench or at the rink, I'm more business-like, and that can throw some people off unless they get to know you on a personal level, and then they can see the balance that you need to have to be sustainable in your career. And I learned that through seeing coaches at the rink, and then I saw coaches outside of the rink. I've been invited to coaches' homes with their family. I've been out for dinners with coaches and GMs, and they're very personable, down-to-earth people. And then you go to the rink, and it's the whole script is flipped, and they're stern, they're on you, they're firm, and they're fair. But then you get outside the rink, and they're kind of let that mentality stay at the rink, and they don't bring it home with them. And I think that's a really good balance for everybody to have, where you keep your workplace and your work mentality at work, and then you go home and you can kind of just let it all go to a degree. And I think that's we got to work on that. It doesn't come natural. You got to work on that.
Yeah, it's funny because when you and I started working together, that's the first thing I noticed about you, right? Like when we're just kind of casual and chatting about other stuff, like we're just like this. But then when we get down to business, like I remember that look in your eyes where it's just like, this is all business.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I clearly saw that. And I think to your point, it can catch people off guard. But then if like, hey, he's getting down to work, then you match that tone. right?
That's right.
And so I think you have that ability to inspire people, not without you even being aware. And that just by you being yourself and turning on that switch, I think is something that a lot of people don't know. A lot of
No.
kids don't know today, right? They think, oh, I'll just do what I'm doing outside and just, now I'm just having fun because my, mom and dad told me to go have fun. So I'm just kind of doing that. But they don't realize that it's work. It's like going to a 9 to 5 job and you going into your, your car and going to the office, doing your work. But then when you're outside of work, it's whatever you do outside of work.
That's right.
So which is a very, it's a mental state, right? It's a very different state of mind. And I think that kind of weaves in nicely into the next conversation about some of the cognitive aspects now with respect to hockey. Like obviously how long were you in this in the NHL for now? Like 11? Was it 11
Yeah, I
seasons?
think 11 years.
And obviously, like you've been through a lot of transition, right? I mean, what do you see now? I mean, obviously, like we know the answer that it's changing, but I don't think a lot of our viewers actually understand, what those changes are. Like, tell me a little bit about some of the changes that you're seeing compared to even when you had played to now.
It's the structure and the systems for me. Every inch of ice matters. Every millisecond matters. Every millimeter matters. And I think that the game is getting so tight and every mistake adds up and every positive thing that you do adds up and every negative thing you do adds up. Like we're talking on like micro managing the game. And I think that the analytics also play a big part in that, because now they're not just looking at shot attempts. They're not looking at face-off wins anymore. They're looking at like how many times you entered the zone, dragging the puck on your right-hand side as opposed to your left. So they're micromanaging the game. And like I said, every inch, every millisecond, every millimeter matters right now. And I think it's just going to get tighter and tighter. And the room for error is going to close and close and close, and that's what makes a good product on the ice. But I think for me, the structure and the systems have, I shouldn't say, yeah, they have changed, but they're micromanaging them tighter, way tighter than they ever did when I first broke out into the league. Because one of my biggest downfalls was me running out of position to make hits, and that I still hear my coaches saying, Zach, you can't run from the blue line, our blue line, the D-zone coverage. You can't run from our blue line all the way down to the goal line and make a hit, because then my D is left open. So I really had to clean that part up of my game. And once I did, I figured some things out. But like I said, they're dissecting every little thing in the structure and the system. If you're not facing the puck one way and your coach wants you to face the other way and you don't do that, you're not going to play, because the next guy up will face the other way the coach wants you to. So like I said, it's the structure and the systems that are just micromanaging a lot.
It's funny because I was watching like an old Toronto Maple Leafs game. Like we're going back like, the Maple Leaf Gardens days, right? And when I watch the players, turn the pucks over, at some point, another team or somebody picks it up and then they just kind of, move it around, and it's not as critical. It doesn't look critical. Like
Right.
I think a lot of if the youth watch those types of games, they get bored to death. Right,
100%.
because there's just nothing happening. There's no zone and clean zone entries and such, and
Yep.
and back in the day, like everybody was going in, like if they had three forwards going into the zone, they're all lined up,
Yeah.
all three, as
Yeah.
opposed to now, which is like now you got to enter in layers, right? Like
Layers.
you gotta, right? So that's changing as well. And even, the goalies, like when I watch the goaltending in those games, like the goalies are coming up almost to the face-off dot
Yep.
to stop a puck, right?
Yep.
And that's transformed now, obviously. I think that now, to your point, like every little detail counts. Every mistake, can be capitalized on by the
That's right.
opponent.
And I also think like now on breakouts and even regroups or power play or O-zone plays, when now teams are practicing, and I witnessed this, you don't have just one option to pick from anymore. The plays that are being drawn up now and the structure and the systems that are being taught now, you have like 3 or 4 options every single time you have the puck. So when you do receive it, if option 1 and option 2 aren't open, then you automatically know 3 will be open. So there's not just one set play off the one entry or one set play on the power play. The half wall guy gets the puck. Now he's got 3 options to choose from. So he has to choose the best one. So that's what makes players also so good, is because they're realizing, okay, those 3 options are closed, it has to be this one, but they're making that decision, in a split second. And that is what's changing the game, because the reaction and the decision making is so quick off of 3 options. It's like, hey, you're seeing it, boom, and you're making it. And that's what's making the game as fast as it is right now too. So
it's almost like football, like where they have like
Yes.
their set plays, but to your point, it's like 3 different plays, in case one doesn't work.
that's right. That's right.
It's like an audible of an audible of an audible. Like
That's right.
and I think that's what makes hockey like exciting. And you see how, if a team makes that bad decision, and then all of a sudden, like we're on the fans going, we're gasping, right? We're like, oh my God, why did he do that, right? Like everybody sees it, but then that one particular, let's say the goalie comes out of his net to try to, pass a puck instead of just kind of staying in his net, and then something happens and it's a complete open net, and everybody in the stands knows that that's not the right play.
Right. And to make more sense of it, yes, there's mistakes, and these mistakes are so small. These details are so small. The smaller the detail is, the bigger the impact it has on the game. But players, NHL players and professional players, they make the mistake, but then great players will learn from the mistake and then correct that mistake. The players that, don't last long in the NHL, or don't make their dreams come true, or they don't pursue what they want to pursue, they don't learn from their mistakes. And they don't understand that the small details make the biggest difference. So between the smallest details making the biggest difference and learning from your mistakes, you don't make them repeatedly, that is just growing inside of the game. Players are able to make mistakes, get a little feedback from the coach, let it go, and then next time they're in that same situation, you better not make that mistake again, because then that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between, like being in the NHL and being in the AHL or East Coast, right? They all have the great skills. They can shoot the puck, they can control the puck, they can dangle the puck, they can hit people, they can make passes. But what's preventing an ECHL guy to go into the AHL or AHL to the NHL is that they make one too many mistakes going down. And I think that's the one feedback that I got from an AHL player, that the reason why he doesn't have an NHL contract is because he makes one too many mistakes more than the other guy.
There's a very small room for error. And once you go past that room for error, then that next player that's behind you competing for your same spot is not making as many mistakes as you are, they're going to use him instead of you. So you just got to be aware. You have to be aware.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is, like you mentioned learning from your mistakes, and I think that's where a lot of people fail, is that they either don't think it's their fault, or that somebody else that's telling them is not telling them correct things, or they feel that it's not my problem, it's somebody else's problem.
Then that's their ego, right? I've been with a lot of players to where their ego gets the best of them, and they never think they're in the wrong. And that's a bad trait to have. Sometimes I've let my ego go completely when I'm getting critical feedback from coaches, because at the end of the day, especially if it's your coach telling you, he's the one that's going to give you the ice time. He's the one that's going to give you your chance. So even if I think I'm right, but my coach is telling me different, I'm going to listen to the coach, because he's the one that's going to dictate my play, my ice time, and my opportunities. So listen to your coaches. That's my biggest giveaway, man. Just listen to your coaches, whether you think you're right or wrong. Listen to your coaches. Listen to the GMs.
I think the other thing too is that a lot of players don't think they're making a mistake until they see themselves making a mistake. Also, the problem is that a lot of youth players today, they don't even want to watch their own video, because they don't want to be, they don't want to see themselves making all these mistakes, and then they think it's like that's a bad thing for them, when really the opportunity is, oh, what could I have done better? Growing up, I know like Rio hated watching himself on video, but then now today, like lately, he's just been saying, you need to start watching your own videos, because that's how you learn, right? Coaches will only see snapshots of you making those mistakes. And so that might be great for that one particular situation, but maybe you're habitually doing other things that are constantly there that the coach may not have noticed. So I always tell people, whether you do it through me or Rio or anyone else, try to get that help as much as possible. I look at it like you're trying to get an A+ in hockey from a cognitive perspective, and saying, how do I make the best choices? How do I make the best decisions based on all three options? And did I even see those three options to begin with? That's where I think, the stuff that you and I've been kind of talking about all the time is around cognitive and so on. I think that's where the biggest, opportunity is, because you fix those little changes and all of a sudden the impact is huge, right?
Right,
You're in those right spots to be able to get the puck on your stick. I find that, we focus a lot of puck touches and trying to do skill work, but if the kid doesn't have the puck, how does it make any sense to do more skill work? It's not about speed if the rink is a smaller rink and you can't always go top speed. So then you have to learn how to adjust your speed, right? And adapt. And so these are all like choices, right? And then which choice makes the best impact. So
two things for me when I see player doing skilled stuff. In a skilled one-on-one skills session development, they look great when they're dangling and they go straight down the ice. It's like they're practicing for an individual sport. And hockey is like a team. Yes, it's an individual. What they're doing is individual skill, and then they get put into the game and they carry that individual skill, and they totally disregard the team because they've only been working on, I have the puck, I'm going through everything, and I'm going to bring it to the net. So when they get into trouble, they have no idea what to do, and then they just throw the puck away and they turn over the puck, or they try and make a pass, but they haven't even looked over there because they're so focused on the individual skill practicing they've been doing, and they're not aware of anything around them at all. That's one. And two, it takes a lot of hard work to get to the good, soft areas for you to set yourself up for success. If I'm F3 and the puck is on the left side, and all of a sudden it goes all the way to the right side, F3 has to be one of the fastest guys over to the right side to get into the slot before anyone else can see him or cover him to get that puck in the slot to shoot. And that takes a lot of hard work. And 99% of the players that I've seen, OHL, minor hockey, AHL, some even in the NHL, they're not willing to get there fast enough because it's hard work. But if you understand that it takes hard work to get to those soft areas where you're going to capitalize and score goals, then it's worth it. But those two things for me, it's tough to see. It's tough to see, and I'm trying to. It
really is.
Yeah.
I know we talk about like being the F1 and F2 and F3 and how it dynamically just changes, right? Like you said, if you're the F3 in front of in the slot, and then the puck gets rimmed around, now you are the F1. Right. Like, and then whoever is the second closest has to support that as an F2. But what most kids do, and even a lot of pros I've seen, is they think F2 should stay in front of the net, but then F3 is also in the slot. So who's helping the F1?
And then it goes back to what your systems are for your team and what your coach has been teaching you in practice. So you need to pay attention in practice, because everything that you do in practice transitions into a game. So you better make sure that you are sharp as a knife and 100% on board and dedicated to your systems, because your systems dictate your ice time.
Yeah, exactly. I have a lot of players that say, hey, I have a lot of skill, but I'm not getting any ice time, or I'm being, I'm a healthy scratch. Yep. Right. I mean, there's a reason for that. I mean, obviously, it may not just be about your skill. Right. However, you want to increase your opportunities and your chances to be playing, second line, first line.
Even penalty kill, like the play away defensive zone coverage is almost as important as O-zone play, because if you can't have a good D-zone coverage, then you can't break out of your end to even get to the offensive zone stuff. So D-zone coverage is way more important of reading the play and reacting to the play and knowing where to be and seeing who's in front of you and reading how many numbers and seeing maybe 3 or 4 things while you're looking at the puck. There's so much going on in D-zone coverage to help you transition to the O-zone that if you're not taking care of the D-zone, you're not going to get to the O-zone.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of the other traits that you may not necessarily think about is important in hockey, it really is. So for example, I have an athlete with photographic memory, and not only does he remember his own systems and his own plays, but he'll turn around and remember the other team's plays.
That's unique.
Right, and those are unique skills that I find are incredibly valuable, but it gets overlooked sometimes. If I knew that, if I had an opportunity to work with a player that has photographic memory, I would probably, and if he has obviously the skills to play,
Right.
like junior or whatever it is, like he would be a great asset, right?
Yeah.
And so I think whether you love to play games online or whatever, your brain is going, right? Like
Yep.
there's a lot of skills that's being developed, and I don't know if did you ever play any other sports growing up, or did you probably play all of them, or?
No, I could have, but I was so dedicated to hockey. I played inline. I loved inline because I love to go fast and there's no offside and you just buzz around, shoot and score. I also played baseball. I loved playing baseball. I was first base, loved that. And I wanted to play football really bad. I loved flag. I played flag at school, loved that. But my first practice with tackle football, I was like maybe 10. I sprained my thumb. The first practice, I was so upset, and I had to miss my hockey, and I said, you know what, it's not worth missing hockey. I want to play football, but hockey's so more important to me. So after that, I literally stopped all sports. I was maybe 10, 11. I stopped all sports. That's when I sprained my thumb, and I just dedicated my life to hockey.
Okay, because
Yeah.
definitely, like other sports, I find is just through the training that we do here and just the data analytics that we collect, like baseball seems to be like right up there in terms of multi-sport skills that would transfer to hockey, and regardless of what position you play, because you're
Yeah.
whether you're hitting a ball, making contact, that those types of skills are also transferable. So I think those are
It is.
really neat. Yeah.
Yeah, I encourage young athletes to step away from hockey for a little bit, not for too long. Get more athletic in other planes of movement instead of just the typical hockey movements. I mean, if you love playing soccer, go play soccer and have fun. Don't forget about being a kid just because you love hockey so much. I think a good balance of being a kid, getting out, getting dirty, playing other sports, and playing hockey is very healthy for athletes as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. I know you and I started working together, I think it was back in October 2020, maybe?
Yep.
Right?
I think it was 19. I was going into Calgary on a PTO.
Right. That's right. And then COVID hit after that. So, right. What was your experience like? I mean, working together, and what's changed for you at that moment when you were training? Like, what did you find
It was life-changing, not just hockey-wise, but life-wise outside of the rink. I was seeing things when I was driving that I never saw before. I was seeing things at home. I was reacting things at home differently. When we were practicing, it was off season. So when I was on the ice doing my development stuff, for me, it was just seeing. I was able to see things. And then I was able to, because I was seeing them, I was able to react to them and make decisions quicker because I was seeing them. And my nervous system and my quick firing tissues, like quick firing reactive muscles were reacting even quicker. And I was already quick with those movements, but I became quicker. And I remember, I might have told you, but I was in the kitchen one day and I grabbed the cup and it was falling, and I saw it falling, and I just grabbed it, and I saw it in my hand, like, what the I'm like, as if there was a camera, I would have been on the highlight reels because I grabbed it so quick. But on the ice, I went to camp after the first summer we were together, and it was the easiest. It was COVID, so we didn't really crush off ice training. It was all on ice, a lot of scrimmages, but it was one of the easiest training camps I had. It was almost effortless for me because I was thinking, but it felt like I wasn't thinking because of the training we've done in the past. So I was seeing things in slow motion, realistically. That's how I can describe it. I was seeing things in slow motion, and I was making decisions quicker, reading the play quicker, but everything seemed slow motion. And that's what we worked on. We worked on training faster than the game. So then when the game was being played, everything seemed slower and I was more in control. I wasn't hesitating. I wasn't second guessing myself. Like I said, I was making plays that I've never made my whole career. And I wish we met like 5-7 years ago, because I would have been a whole different player. My whole life changed because of what we did, and it opened. I knew that stuff existed. I knew it should have existed. So once I saw you doing what you were doing, I jumped all over it, because I knew, maybe subconsciously, that existed somewhere. So once I saw what you're doing, it was a no-brainer for me, and we connected, and the proof was in the pudding, because I was doing things that I've never done my whole hockey career.
Yeah.
And I was doing things outside the rink that I've never done.
Your coffee mug story that you just told happened exactly to another kid. He's like 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
He was digging into a box of Timbits on the counter, and then he fumbled it. The Timbit started falling, and then he caught it before he hit the floor. And then he looked at his dad and said, "This is Satoshi's work."
Yeah, and that's a fact. Yeah.
So I get those all the time.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh. But I think that's where, growing up for me, I did that like naturally. Like and there was a time when I was in a coffee shop too, and I knocked the mug over with the coffee in it, and as the mug is going, falling to the ground, I caught it again. So it's like, these are things that are, to your point, I think they are life changing if you've never been exposed to this type of stuff. And I think that what almost was also a good thing that you did for me one day was that you told me about specific areas of weakness. I won't go into it, but I know that, like you mentioned, like specific areas of weakness.
Yep.
And I remember watching your games, and I'm like, yep, that's where it is. So let's work on specific drills that would help you with that.
Yeah.
And we just harped on it over and over and over again. And I remember you like getting really upset. But I'm like, no, this is the right thing. This is the right thing, right? And so, and then I remember watching some of those games, and it was just like, yep, like he's got it.
Like for me, my mind was one of the quotes that my trainer, Noah, shout out to Noah, because he changed my life physically as well. Our theme for training was control through the chaos. And if you can control your brain and your body while there's chaos going around you, but you can stay focused and stay sharp and stay level-headed through the chaos, you're going to be in really, really good shape. So between all those lights going on around me, sometimes I would get so pissed off because my brain there was so much chaos going on within the lights and in the whole environment around me. But you stay in that environment, and there's so many times in the middle of me doing those exercises with you where I was like, okay, I want to get out of this environment. Like, it was too much for me. The stimulus was too much for my brain. But I stayed in there and stayed with it. And every single time I came back, it got easier and it got easier. And coming into games, the chaos was more organized. I was able to organize the chaos, and it didn't seem as chaotic because I was training in a way more chaotic environment than the game was. So it was more organized when I was playing. So controlling through the chaos on the ice and off the ice helped me a lot.
I think that's true. It's kind of like a Navy SEALs type training, right? Where you're just coming in, you're not sure what to expect, and 99.9% of the people that come here have no clue what to expect, and that's actually great.
No idea.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they get exposed, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, these are areas that I can work on, and I can be a little bit quicker. It doesn't even matter what sport you play, and that's really my goal, which is, get to as many different sports that involve that quick decision making. It doesn't even have to be reaction time, but it's just like, can I think quickly enough and make the right decision, just like chess.
Yeah, oh yeah, and because going back to those star players making those highlight reel moves based on the reaction. So now we're training on using your own instinct and your own reactions, because then you get put into that position. I was pulling things out of my hat that I've never done before and I've never practiced before, but I thought, okay, that was at the time, I'm like, I have to do this or I'm not going to lose the puck, or I have to do this because I need to make the play. And you just reaction, highlight reels, but never trained that way, just mentally trained it.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like McDavid doesn't do that specific drill where he goes through 4 guys, like that's not what he practices.
He doesn't. he just reacts that way because is he training the way we've trained? I mean, he must be doing something on the lines of cognitive training, or he's just gifted that way. But going on a 1-on-4, he's seeing the holes that he can go through, and he's probably not training specifically every single time he's on the ice doing the things he's done in the past or he's going to do in the future. So it's all about reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about like what you're up to today, right? Like these days, what's kind of Zach Rinaldo version 2 for you now with this new chapter in your transition?
I've fallen in love with coaching. I have the passion for the game, the passion for learning as a player, as a coach. I wouldn't want to say fan because I'm not a fan of it. I'm in love with getting better as a person and now I'm as in love with getting better as a coach because I'm not a player anymore. And I'm learning, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts and I'm educating myself on who a coach is and what a coach really does. And good coaches get better not just as a coach, but they get better as a person. And I love working on myself to benefit me as a person, knowing it's going to benefit me as a coach now. So I've fallen in love with coaching. I love the team atmosphere. I love helping players. I love connecting with them on a personal level. I love helping them grow as a person. I love connecting with their parents. I just love everything a coach has to do. I love it. So I'm going to pursue coaching right now. I'm coaching the minor Bantam 09 Toronto Red Wings. We have a very, very strong team. I think we're 5th or 4th in Canada, I'm pretty sure it's Canada right now. So yeah, I'm just falling in love. I'm going to pursue coaching wherever that brings me. OHL, HL, NHL. I'm going to follow my gut and my instincts. And wherever that leads me, I'm open to it. So I've fallen in love with coaching, and that's where I'm at right now.
I think you're an excellent coach, man. Just in terms of like the whole package, right? Of developing a player, and it's not just on ice either, right? But it's like what you experienced and like how do you improve on those things, right? And so
like I hated going back to video. I hated watching myself on video. I did because no matter how good I played, knowing I played good, no matter how good I played, when I watched video, and I have watched video in the past, it was never good enough. And I hated feeling that way. Everyone's telling me, oh, you played so good. So when I watched it, I'm like, no. Like, I was just really hard on myself, I think. So I never watched video. I hated it. But now I'm grabbing guys in the room, like, we have to watch video. I'm like, because video. You need to see this. You need to watch it. You need to see this. So I'm learning things about what I could have done better as a player, but it's all about learning. And then I'm learning through experiences of what I could have done, and I'm implementing it to players, and I'm letting them know, like, hey, I should have done this as a player to make myself better, but now I'm not there. So I'm giving the game to you so you don't make those same decisions I made. So I've fallen in love with watching friggin' video.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool because in golf, it's done all the time, right? Like every little detail. And I think that you have an eye for those little things because you appreciate how much it can impact, the changes. So I'm glad you're able to, kind of share those experiences with all the players on the Red Wings right now, and hopefully you could do that for other players moving forward. So
I think I'm
thank
going
you for that.
No problem. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Where can people reach out to you and find you? What's the best way to find you right now?
Probably on Instagram right now. I'm not that active on Instagram, but I'm always checking it. Get a lot of DMs, get a lot of messages asking where I'm doing development skating, where I'm doing off-ice training and stuff like that. So my Instagram is probably the best way to reach me, Rinaldo Zach. I reply to 90% of my DMs. I keep in contact with a lot of people. I've met a lot of cool people through Instagram. So yeah, I'm always checking my messages, and I'm always willing to help, whether that be hockey players or business-minded people. So feel free to message me. I'm always checking.
Very cool. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure over the years getting to know you and seeing you grow and evolve, and I'm so happy that you chose to be here for this podcast. So really appreciate the time, man. Thank you.
Of course, I wouldn't miss it. And I hope everyone that's listening or does end up listening can understand what we're trying to achieve here with athletes, not just hockey, but athletes in general. So it's very beneficial things, and you just gotta have an open mind to this kind of stuff. And once you have that open mind and you dive into it, it's life changing, not only for you as a player in your sport, but you as a person in life in general. So thanks for your time, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. This concludes our episode with Zach. Thanks again for joining. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to this channel. And hopefully we'll be doing more conversations like this with a series of different guests. So thanks again for joining today.